Okay, so paths. I brought up this image, and this is going to be the project I want you to work on. Is a logo project, and this is going to be uh, working with paths. And you could do this either way. It's up to you. I'm going to show you paths so you can see paths, but you could do this also with shapes. Um, in a lot of ways, like I said, shapes are a little easier to work with, but and this isn't like a true selection, but I'll just do the I'll do a portion. I'll do like the umbrella here. So I don't, you guys have seen me working with the pen tool a lot, but I just want to show you how the path tool works. So using the pen, I'm going to change over from shape to path. And when we're doing path, we're just doing selections, right? So remember, I kind of like to just do as few clicks as possible. So notice I'm not going over the umbrella right here. I'm going to try and get it here. Try not to stress on making too few points, right? Because you can always add them, right? And another thing to take note of is how, notice how I'm hitting high points, except for right there, but I'm hitting all the high points and we'll let the low points just find their own way, right? So that's my shape. Now I'm going to go to the convert point tool and I'm just going to work my way through, right? So I'm going to click on this one. And it's going to be a little bit of a challenge because I can't know exactly where each one of these is going to go. So sometimes when you do these, you're going to have to go through a couple times. But one thing I found is that what's best here is to not to not go clicking all over. Like kind of stay in order. See how when I did this handle stayed available and I could kind of mess with that. So don't try to get this one perfect. Just go on to the next one and then work these two together. That one's a little tight. I'm not going to worry about that one. Now, I don't really actually know what's happening here. There's probably actually a couple here about her dress and her body's going to hide that, so I'll just kind of leave that like that. Remember, watch out for those crosses like that, so you just kind of have to keep an eye on it. And don't try and get it perfect. Just with in my opinion, it's better just to be like get the curves going. So first I always start just kind of laying out linear positions, and then I start introducing curvature, but I don't get it perfect. And remember, you're going to want to edit both sides anyway, so just work your way around. Now we'll go for this one. Like that. Looks good. So that's a path, okay? So, it didn't fill, there's no fill, there's nothing there. So what does a path do, right? A path is really an empty channel, and it's right here. They're called paths, right? So we have layers and paths. So if I click on the path, you'll see it calls itself work path, okay? If I click away from work path, you'll see that the path seems to have disappeared. If I click back on work path, I can see it again. It's hard maybe to see, but it's this blue line is the path, right? Now work path is not the best name, and if I were to click away and start making more paths, I can lose this path. It's easy to lose these. So what I would suggest is just name it. I'll just name this umbrella. Might spell that wrong, but that's okay. But just by naming that, I saved it. Okay. There's also, of course, I think there was a save path here. I think I just got rid of that. But if you right click on them, I think you can save too. But just by naming it, if you just right click on it or just double click on it and name it, it literally saves it for you, which is pretty awesome. think there's also in these lines here, maybe there's I'm not sure where safe path is, to be honest. We'll make another one, see if I can find it. I think maybe I'm so used to just naming them for save that that's what I always do. So again, it still doesn't really make total sense. Like, what are you doing with this, right? So, well, there's a couple things we can do. So usually when we're doing paths, we're talking about selections, right? So for instance, if I do right click on this, notice that I get some options, right? So I can duplicate, I can delete, I can fill a path, I can also stroke a path. Obviously there's these other things, right? And you know, Photoshop's now doing a lot of 3D stuff, but also make selection. And this is probably the one I would suggest right now. So then it's going to ask me, do you want to feather the edge? In this case, I'll say no, 0, 0. So, feathering would be, kind of talked a little bit about that when we're doing the refined edging on the hair and stuff, but usually in this case, no. I'll say okay. And so now I have a selection, and I remember the person that was talking about the pen tool, they really particularly liked it for its selective qualities, and some people really love the ability to select so carefully. So now in here, I could do, if I do Command J, I'll get a new layer of that selection. That's one thing I could do. So now I've just cut that section out. Another thing that we could do is I could add a mask to that layer. And so now I masked out just the umbrella portion. And so you can see that the things that we've normally been doing, we can do, right? So, now I can take the move tool and I can drag this and, well, let's not put it in here. Put it in the focus one, right? Oh, she's going to go, because the cone, I put it in the cone's there, right? So I can put her in the cone. Okay. And she's cut out. That was a weird thing to do, quite honestly, but I did it. And so she's cut out. Why do we cut things out? You guys know why we cut things out. We've used different selective type tools, right? We've done, we used the marquee, we used the lasso, we've used the quick select, we've used the, in there we used the subject, we focus, right? So this is the pen tool. It's just another way of creating selections, right, that are really detailed and very, in a lot of ways, really super time consuming. So I would not do this for hair, but it works really well on this graphic, as you can see, right? Let's take that mask off. I'm gonna deselect because I have a selection. I'll just do make a new layer, and then I'll go into the paths, and now I'll stroke this layer. So just notice that in layers, when we do this, this is a little bit different than when we did the shape. Okay, so when we do paths and we do a stroke, we're actually going to stroke with the pen tool. So let me hide this, and let me go to my brush real quick and just look at the brush settings. So this is one thing that you guys might want to think about here. So let's get that brush really small. So we can see the brush size right there. Color is going to be red. Let's pick a different color so you guys can see that it's green. And it's just a round brush, okay? Everything cool? So notice how I'm setting up my brush right now, okay? I have a new layer. It's important. I don't want to paint over my layer 1. I'm going to go to my path. I'm going to right click. I'm going to say stroke path. See that? And notice what it asked me. It says, well, what do you want to stroke with? And this is what's really cool about it, is that now I'm stroking not a shape, but a path. And so now all my Photoshop tools are available. So I can use the pencil, the brush, the eraser, clone stamp, basically dodge and burn. We talked about those with a little bit of blur. We haven't done much with a little smudge. We haven't done all of these, but I'm going to use the brush. Kind of makes the most sense in a way. And I'll say OK. And it just paints that out, right? Looks like I have some opacity on that brush. See that? So a cool thing to do would be change that brush out. We'll make it a little bit smaller. Let's pick like a magenta. Let's put our opacity back up to 100 and then stroke it again. You get this cool look, right? Now this is all in that layer, so I painted that in the layer. The paths is still selected, so you see that? So when I click on this, you see that there's still that line through the center. If I click off path, it takes that line off. Click on layers. I'll show the Morton Salt, and now I have that path stroking across that umbrella. So the path is pretty awesome in that now we're using it's a lot like that tool I was just showing you, that it was like a machine that was creating something out of foam, right? Now you're using this path tool to run the brush, right? So you're telling the computer to control the brush is what you're doing, okay? So it can be a little bit challenging, right? Look at the shape dynamics. So notice that if we turn shape dynamics, we got size jitters on. Let's do bring size jitter back down. Let's turn this to pen pressure. Okay, so it's got pen pressure. Let's make the brush a little bit larger so we can see the effect. Not quite that large, okay? So see how I have pen pressure on? Okay, so now I'm going to make a new layer. I'll hide that layer, okay? Let's hide both of these. And let's go to that paths, and we'll do this one more time, a stroke. Now notice that the brush tool is selected, but this time I'm going to click on simulate pressure. So see, this is now going to see, it's going to try to simulate as if I was using a pen, okay? So I'm going to click on this. Now I'm going to say okay. And you see how where it started, I got that thin pressure, and then where in the middle, I get the thicker pressure, and then, right? So you can see that where it's starting and ending, and I'm getting this real cool effect. So you can do that. Let's undo that. Let's turn on. Let's turn spacing on and stroke. Right? Let's change the color. Change the. Maybe I didn't want to do that. Let's try that one more time. And now I'll change the color. But this time I'll just make the size a little bit bigger. Try that. Not as cool. Let's do, let's change opacity. I'm playing around with it. You guys see what I'm saying? Like you can do some cool stuff, right? Like there's a lot of different things we can do. We could do the scattering, we could do transfer, we could do a dual brush, we could pick a different brush altogether. So I wonder if I still have my bush. Yeah, let's throw the bush down. Looks awful. But you see what I'm doing, right? Here's that yin yang. The scattering's just not good. Let's turn the scattering off. Let's go back to the brush tip shape and get some spacing on that. Let's also opacity up. Let's get it. Doesn't look super hot. I agree. But you guys see where I'm going with that. So that's one of the awesome things about it. So you can paint with it. You can have it control brushes. You can have it do all kinds of special effects that way. Simulate pressure. I didn't do a fill, but I think the fills are pretty straightforward. If you fill a path, you're basically just going to use colors. I mean, there are patterns and stuff, so you can use a pattern of some sort. So we can do patterns. you could do just a regular fill with a color. I think that for most of you, these are going to make pretty good sense, right? So we can do the foreground color. These are pretty straightforward, I think, the fills, but the strokes are kind of where the real, like, you get a real artistry with it, which is kind of fun. So that's the path tool. I feel like I'm just kind of like showing you all kinds of things right now, and it's a pretty long set of videos, so I think that's all I want to show you for now. There are some, you can load the path as selection, you can stroke paths, you can fill path, down here. You can add a layer mask. So see how it added a layer mask there? Not as useful, but there are some things down there that are a little bit different to pay attention to. Big thing to watch out for is when you do these kind of strokes or anything like that, just remember that you are applying that to a layer, and now you've lost that quality of, I cannot scale this, right? So if I make this small, I just selected the path. Let's deselect that path. Go back to that layer and do that on the layer. If I make that small, and I accept it, and then I make it big again, I'm going to run into that problem of pixelation, right? And so this is no longer, I lose that quality of the path, right? Because this is now pixels, it's layers, pixel information, right? If I don't want to have that happen, it's not a problem though. I can actually go to the paths, right? The path's still there. I can still fill it, okay? I can also, from here, I can scale it, right? So if I want this larger, I can scale the path instead, right? So I can make this really small. Let's accept it. I'll fill it. And then I'm going to select it again. I'll make it big. I'll accept it, and I'll fill it. And you can see that because I'm scaling only the path itself, and not the pixel information, I still have that scalability, but I do have to keep filling and making sure I'm tracking what's going on with my layers, right? Because those are actual pixel information, and so that's a little bit different. So my idea for you guys is going to be working on a project like this, and what I want you guys to do is to pick out a logo, and let's go to Chrome again. I think it's hidden. There it is. You should pick out a logo. So you can do the Morton Salt, or you can do Burger King, or you can mess around. And what I hope you guys do is you kind of pick out a logo and have a little bit of fun with it. So I was doing the Morton Salt. Just if we do the images, I think what you'll see is yeah. So Supreme has done a version of this, right? And some of you probably heard of Supreme, and so you could play around with that. Like the idea is just to kind of play around with the logo and have a good time, but just to trace something out, to give you something to trace, and that's going to be kind of what I'm looking for is a traced logo. You can have a little bit of fun with it. It's going to take you a little bit of time, so make sure you pick something that's not overly complex, right? So I think that Pepsi's pretty easy. Google, not too hard. 7-Eleven, you can use text if you want. Firefox is pretty easy. Some of these get a little more difficult. The Apple logo, right? But I hope you kind of play around with it a little bit, like have a little bit of fun with it and see what you can do to mess with the idea a little, and that could be fun as well. So have a good time with it and enjoy the experience of messing around with some logos a little bit, right? Lastly, what I want to show you is the practice tool, and this is not the practice tool. This is the practice tool. It's called the Bezier game. Okay, I found it by just typing in the Bezier game, and I found it. And this is a game to help you master the pen tool. And I would start here to begin with. Um, just go ahead and click on it. Click on it. Click on it. And it just tells you how to do it. It's like, oh, you did that. So now it's saying you hold shift. So if I click here and I hold shift, you see it'll lock it into a 45-degree. If I hold shift, it'll stay straight. You see that? And basically, if you can stay in these lines, it'll accept it. So again, this is that circle thing. Like I said, it'll show you. Cool thing is it kind of shows you where to put the handles a little bit. And again, I'm holding shift as I drag these out. Here's the classic heart. And it's trying to show me how to use Alt in this case, like so that when I let go, so if I click out and drag, right, holding Alt, again, it's a lot easier when you have something there sort of showing you. I was holding Alt when I did that, so it's a lot easier when you have something showing you where to put it, right? Now, watch. So when I let go, and it tries to, it says, "Oh, that didn't work," right? So it'll want you to, it won't let you progress until you get it. Just so, and then it gets into these more complicated shapes. So it's a good practice tool, and I think you'll find that you'll learn a lot off of it. Yeah. So take your time with this. With the one last thing, just with doing an umbrella like I'm doing with her, what I would probably end up doing would be multiple paths. So just as an example, I would do maybe I did the whole umbrella. Now I might do one that's just this portion here. This will be a weird shape. I don't know what's going to happen here. Then I would take that that convert tool, weird shape, right? But I can get this to fit, and this would be, I can then have this be that white chunk. This would be my umbrella top. So having worked with these a lot in my life, I kind of have come to a certain level of comfort not having the shape totally match what I'm doing first off. And I guess to me, it just feels more natural to not try to overthink it in the beginning and just kind of let the shapes come as they go. And then I just call this umbrella top. And then I would do maybe the hair. Hair's hard to decide where I would put these lines, but work my way through. Remember, you don't have to overthink this. You can totally come back and add. Remember, if I click on here, I can add one, or I can take one out. So don't be like overly concerned. Just go for it. Here's where I grabbed the whole thing. You see that? Just remember to click on one. Okay, it's okay if you don't put the right number out. Just you always have the ability to come back and work them, right, as you go. So don't get. I think that's one thing is people tend to they stress too much about that can happen. They kind of stress a little bit over what it should look like too much in the beginning, and just kind of it's better just to take your time with it and don't let it push you around a little bit in a way, right? Like just it's okay. You'll get there eventually. You just it is actually a super forgiving tool. But for a lot of people, they don't feel that way. Um, and I know it probably maybe it looks like this is just doing this, right? But I know from experience that people tend to not want to use this tool. People tend to avoid this tool. Here's where I probably need to add one right here. Do you see that? So I'm just going to click in there and add one. And just put it into position, right? And get that nice cheekbone. Something like this, it can be a little challenging, but you really want that point. I think you guys are starting to see what I'm talking about. So, I'm just going to work my way around. And I'll be a little bit quicker on these last little bits here. I'm not over. Right? And so, this one doesn't look super hot. I can maybe play with that one a little bit to get, maybe I need another one there or, another one there. But as you can see, I think this one went into the umbrella top actually. Just see it's in the umbrella top, so I'll just leave it there. That's fine. You can see it. Okay, I was trying to show something how to stroke a subpath, and I kind of panicked because I was on the video. So I'm just gonna show you what I don't know what I was having a hard time. But first off, one thing about having uh, two strokes on one layer, if you don't want that, I can select the hair and I can do edit copy. I can do a cut too, but I'm gonna do a copy, and then I'm just gonna make a new path, call it hair, and then in the hair layer I can just paste it or edit paste, right? Command V, Control V, and so now I have just this hair layer, and you can see it's right here. And I'm doing that with the direct select tool, just so you know. I made that selection using or the path select rather. And so I can move these around again, and that gives me the ability to kind of have the hair in a different spot. If I don't want to have these all be in one section, you can. It's not a problem. And let's talk about. I was trying to use the direct select, and I was right clicking. I was trying to do a stroke. Well, now it's letting me. I don't know what's going on. So I guess I can stroke a subpath. Do the brush. Let's get that crazy brush. I don't know what was happening. It just was not letting me do that before. Giant brush. There we go. I don't know what. I clicked on the button down there, and I don't know why that was giving me such a hard time. Let's do this part again. I'm just clicking there, or I can right click. Yeah, I don't know why I was doing that. So it's either fill or stroke subpath. Do you see that? Or I can just do the whole thing if I click on everything and do stroke path. It should do both, right? And so you can do a subpath, or you can do change that to blue. Just stroke the subpath. So you can do individuals, even though they're all on the same layer. You can still stroke and fill as you wish. A couple extra things that I was going to add in there. So yeah, I'm going to leave you there and let the video continue. That was a problem. Had a little bit of a hiccup there. So go ahead and pick out an image and do your strokes, and that'll be kind of where we end it. And I would suggest filling them in, and you can play around with the shapes a little, or you could just do a straight up, straight up copy of something, and that's fine. So we'll leave you there. Good luck.